All right, our next speaker is Bryan Daugherty.
Hey, Bryan.
Yeah, Bryan. You ready? Okay.
Hello everybody.
Hello, Bryan.
It's good to be here. It's good to see all you patriots out here on Patriot Day. I'm hoping to talk to you a little bit about change, and I'm not really talking about the change that Obama promised, or I'm not talking about the change you're going to be left with after you pay your taxes today. One of the things that I do is I'm a grassroots activist, and I don't really feel incumbent to one party or another, but rather more towards the people that I see that are trying to push our country into the direction that we need to be in. This last week I spent quite a bit of time out in LA with the RNC spring meeting, and one of the things that we've been pushing is trying to change the way that the RNC's top-down structure is. Now, we were semi-successful, and one of the things that encourages me to continue this fight is that I see people from North Carolina, Iowa, Wisconsin, Minnesota, that all make it a point to go and attend these events to hold our RNC members and to hold our elected officials and party officials to a degree of representing the people that not only donate to our party, but do the door knocking, that make the phone calls, that do the lit drops, that continuously and tirelessly give more than they ever take. It was really encouraging to be able to speak to a lot of the 168 RNC members from across the U.S. and one of the most encouraging things about it is they love us there. They actually do, because it gives them the courage to do the right thing. Now, some may argue that, well, they shouldn't have to do that, or they should already have the courage enough to do the right thing, but they're under a lot of undue pressure. And that pressure really resides from big money donors. And so when we have our political officials and representatives that are, incumbent to a lot of money, rather than who put them in those offices, then, there's definitely a butting of heads there. So I just want you to look, we're right here in the Capitol Park, right next to the Capitol building. Now, one interesting aspect about that is there's almost 1.4 million people in Maine. In this last 2012 election, about 700,000 people voted. If you take the 20% that cannot vote that are under 18, there's still 1/3 of the Maine population that is either unenrolled, independent, or just didn't participate in voting. Interestingly, if you take just from the 2012 election, Democrats had about 398,000 votes. That's about 1/3. So when you look at this, and we, as Republicans, took a pretty big beating in the state House and state Senate, 1/3 of the population is controlling what goes on in that building. Whereas 1/3 has decided to stay home, continue, maybe to turn out every 4 years if we're lucky. What we need to do is reach out to these people on a daily basis. I was told that in 2010 this park was packed. Here we are, and I realize it is a Monday, I believe. I'm still suffering from jet lag, but it does amaze me to see that you guys did come out at a time. But what we have to do is be vigilant in these off years, because this is when we have all these bills that we have to challenge, when they're challenging our Second Amendment rights, and they're challenging every fiber of what makes us American. And if we're not willing to hold them accountable, whether they're Republican, Democrat, Independent, then we are just going to be subject to whatever laws they decide to pass. And if we're not going to be vigilant enough to speak up for what our own rights are, then we certainly don't deserve them. And so again, I want to thank you all for coming here, and I want to tell you that we need to continue to push forth, whether it's inside the party or outside the party. And there's a lot of different avenues that we can take. You know, there's ballot initiatives, referendums, you know, regardless of, you know, the two-party system, we have to realize that we are up against that money. So from my understanding of grassroots activism and seeing it take place, not just here in Maine, but in Iowa and California and everywhere else, one of the things that you can almost say about a grassroots activist is they give more than they take. Unfortunately, some of our party members have yet to realize how to tap into that grassroots activism. It's not something that you can just have a face value for. You have to actually believe in your cause. And so one thing I would recommend to any representative is to follow the platform and to follow the things that, you know, that make us a Republican, an independent, a libertarian. You have to follow and have to give some reason for these people to believe in you. And if you cannot do that, you will be unsuccessful. That representative will be basically incumbent to the money that comes in and out of their campaign. Now, when you look at consultants, most consultants actually make 45 to 55 cents out of every dollar they raise. For the Republican National Committee, we spent $300 million on the 2012 election. We outspent the Democrats 2-1. Is anybody here happy with the results that we got from that money being spent? Neither am I. And one of the things that, when you really look at it, that money is just to continue that monolithic, to sustain that monolithic party system, to where, you know, at some point in our nation's history, you know, these people were convinced that they needed somebody to either tweet something for them or run around and grab their coffee or, you know, grab something out of the car for them, and that they should be paid, and that, you know, they need all this extra service. Well, we didn't elect all those staff members and that. What we elected was a representative to actually follow through on the promises that they've made to the people that voted him in. So I guess the biggest thing I would advocate for you is to continue to email, continue to call, continue to write whoever you can to ensure that your rights are not being trampled on. Whether that's your RNC committee members, whether that's your elected representative, whether that's your judge in your district, it really doesn't matter. But the moment that you choose to stay quiet or not show up or stay at home or just show up every 4 years, you're going to realize that you've missed the boat. You have to stay vigilant. And on my last point, I would like to I'd like to give out some t-shirts. How many people here support the Maine delegation? All right.
I want one.
So you got one. So you're welcome. And one thing with the Maine delegation, I want to speak just for a moment briefly on them. Oh, here we go. Don't worry, I have some more in my car if you really want them. So, all right, hold on. One thing about the Maine delegation, there's been a lot of talk back and forth from different people, and I've heard all sorts of stories, whether we did the right thing, whether we did not do the right thing. And I will tell you that in the face of any tyranny, in the face of any, you know, obstacle, you must take a stand. And one of the things that the Maine delegation did, and one of the things that I am so inspired to continue to fight for, is that they never gave up. They fought for everything they believed in, and when the moment came, they did the right thing. Whether you agree with it or not, they did the right thing. And I want to thank everybody again for showing up.
Thanks for being here.
Love you guys.